For years, Padmé Amidala fought for democracy. She spoke for peace in the Senate halls, but nothing ever changed. The Clone Wars tore the galaxy apart. Greed poisoned the politicians, and the Jedi seemed blind to the suffering of ordinary people. One quiet night on Coruscant, the weight of it all crushed her spirit. She visited Chancellor Palpatine in secret, desperate for a real solution. But Palpatine did not offer sweet lies. Instead, he showed her the raw power of the dark side. He promised her an order that would never break. He promised her absolute safety for her secret husband, Anakin, and their unborn child. Padmé looked at the burning city outside the window. The Republic was dead in everything but name. If peace could not be won through votes, she would forge it through iron will. She accepted Palpatine's dark teachings, trading her ideals for pure, unyielding control. Her warm heart turned to ice. She would no longer beg for justice. She would take it. When Padmé returned to her apartment, her eyes held a cold, new fire. She sat at her desk and drafted a classified decree that would reshape Coruscant forever. She was no longer just a senator fighting a losing battle. She was now a shadow, ready to strike at the heart of the Republic itself. The trap was set, and the first target on her list was the Jedi Order. Padmé Amidala was the most respected voice in the entire Galactic Senate. No one ever questioned her loyalty to the people. That made her the deadliest weapon Darth Sidious could ever ask for. She called an emergency session under the Grand Dome. Standing on her repulsor pod, dressed in dark, elegant robes, she addressed thousands of delegates. Her voice was steady, powerful, and convincing. She revealed fabricated intelligence files, showing that Master Windu and the Jedi Council were planning to assassinate the Chancellor and seize military rule. The Senate erupted in sheer panic. Padmé did not pause. She demanded the immediate arrest of all Jedi and granted the Chancellor total authority to cleanse the capital. Because the call came from Padmé, the champion of democracy, even the most skeptical senators cheered in agreement. Clones stormed the Jedi Temple within the hour. Padmé watched the smoke rise into the sky from the chancellery balcony, feeling no remorse. She had sacrificed the Jedi to build a stronger world. Suddenly, the doors behind her opened. Anakin Skywalker rushed in, panicked and terrified for her safety after hearing the news. Padmé turned to face him, wearing a dark smile he had never seen before. Now, she had to win over the only person who truly mattered. Anakin stared at Padmé, sensing a terrifying wave of dark energy radiating from her soul. He ignited his blue lightsaber, his hands trembling. He asked her what she had done, his voice breaking with confusion and fear. Padmé walked toward him slowly, completely unafraid of the glowing blade. She gently placed her hand against his cheek. She spoke of their future, not as hidden lovers living in fear, but as absolute rulers. She explained that the Jedi were weak, the Senate was broken, and only the two of them possessed the strength to bring real peace. "We don't have to hide anymore, Anakin," she whispered softly. "I built this empire for us, for our child." Her words broke down every wall inside Anakin's conflicted mind. He had lived his whole life taking orders from masters who held him back. Padmé was not commanding him. She was offering him a crown beside her. The dark side surged through his veins, fueled by his desperate, possessive love. The blue blade vanished. Anakin fell to one knee, bowing his head before his wife. "My life is yours, my queen," he declared, with fierce devotion. Padmé smiled, gently running her fingers through his hair. The chosen one was now her loyal guardian. Their next mission was waiting on the fiery world of Mustafar. The fiery skies of Mustafar burned red as Padmé's sleek skiff landed on the mining platform. In another timeline, this world would have been the graveyard of their love. But today, Padmé and Anakin walked down the ramp side by side, cloaked in matching black robes. Inside the command bunker, The Separatist leaders were waiting, terrified and trapped. They expected Lord Vader alone. Instead, they saw Senator Amidala walking at the front. Before Newt Gunray could speak a single word, Anakin drew his crimson blade. With brutal speed, he cut down the Separatist Council one by one. Padmé watched without blinking, stepping over the fallen bodies to reach the main terminal. She bypassed the automated shutdown sequence that Darth Sidious had ordered. Instead, Padmé uploaded an override code, transferring the entire Separatist droid army directly to her personal command. Millions of battle droids across the galaxy suddenly went from active enemies to her private legion. Anakin cleaned his blade and stood at her side. Padmé looked out at the rivers of lava flowing beneath the facility. She now commanded the clone army through the Senate and the droid army through her terminal. She possessed more power than Darth Sidious had ever imagined. It was time to eliminate the old master, once and for all. Palpatine waited in the Grand Chancellery office, expecting a submissive apprentice and a broken galaxy. But when the heavy blast doors slid open, Padmé Amidala walked in first, radiating cold, supreme authority. Anakin followed silently behind her, his yellow eyes locked onto the old Sith Master. Palpatine smiled wickedly, praising their success on Mustafar. But Padmé cut him off with a single, sharp command. She stated plainly that a true empire could only have one ruler, and an old shadow had no place in the new dawn. Realizing the betrayal, Palpatine unleashed a deadly storm of Force lightning. But Anakin was faster. Moving with impossible speed, Anakin absorbed the dark energy with his lightsaber, deflecting the lethal bolt straight back at his former master. Padmé signaled her personal clone guard. The elite troopers flooded the chamber, locking down every exit with heavy blasters. Palpatine struggled against the overwhelming assault, his ancient power failing against the raw might of the Chosen One. With a final, decisive strike, Anakin drove his blade through the heart of Darth Sidious. The creator of the Clone Wars fell lifeless onto the polished floor. Padmé stepped forward, smoothing her dark velvet dress. She walked directly to the massive throne-like chair at the end of the hall and sat down. The galaxy belonged to her now. But across the stars, an old friend was mounting a desperate counterattack. In the deep shadows of the Outer Rim, Obi-Wan Kenobi rallied the shattered remnants of the Jedi Order. Master Yoda, Plo Koon, and a handful of surviving knights gathered in secret. The news from the capital was impossible to comprehend. Senator Padmé Amidala had crowned herself Empress, with Anakin Skywalker as her chief enforcer. Obi-Wan refused to accept that Anakin and Padmé were beyond redemption. He believed that if he could just reach them, he could break the dark trance gripping their minds. Yoda warned him that Padmé's political ambition had poisoned her soul, but Obi-Wan insisted on leading a strike team to Coruscant. Using stolen security codes, the small Jedi strike force bypassed the orbital defense fleet and landed in the lower levels of the capital. They moved like ghosts through the shadows, fighting past patrols of both clone troopers and reactivated battle droids. Obi-Wan climbed the grand steps of the former Senate building, his heart heavy with grief. The marble halls were draped in Imperial red and black banners. He breached the Imperial throne room, expecting an ambush of soldiers. Instead, he found only two people waiting for him in the quiet, cavernous hall. Anakin stood guard before the throne, igniting his crimson blade. Behind him sat Padmé, looking down with absolute indifference. The tragic reunion had finally begun. "You were my brother, Anakin!" Obi-Wan shouted, his voice echoing off the high stone walls. "Padmé, this is not who you are! Look at what you have become!" Padmé did not flinch. "I became what the galaxy required, Obi-Wan," she replied coldly. "I brought peace. You bring only chaos." Anakin charged with terrifying fury. The throne room filled with the crackle of clashing energy as blue and red blades collided. Obi-Wan fought with defensive perfection, matching every furious blow Anakin threw at him. Sparks flew across the floor as they traded strikes, their movements blurring with superhuman speed. Obi-Wan managed to push Anakin back, landing a heavy strike against his shoulder. For a brief second, Obi-Wan lowered his guard, calling out to the boy he had raised on Tatooine. It was a fatal mistake. From her elevated throne, Padmé raised a hidden wrist blaster and fired a concentrated stun bolt directly into Obi-Wan's chest. The blast shattered his focus and threw him to the floor. Before Obi-Wan could recover his weapon, Anakin stood over him. The red blade hummed inches from the Jedi Master's throat. Anakin looked up at his Empress, awaiting the final decree. Padmé gave a slight, merciless nod. With a single downward thrust, the light of the Jedi was extinguished forever. The final obstacle to their new empire was gone. Silence returned to the Coruscant throne room, signaling the end of the 1,000-year Jedi legacy. The surviving Jedi across the stars were hunted down one by one, leaving Empress Padmé Amidala without a single rival in the entire galaxy. Months later, the Imperial Palace celebrated the birth of the royal heirs, twin infants named Luke and Leia. Standing on the grand Imperial balcony overlooking millions of gleaming starships, Padmé held her children close. Anakin stood tall at her right side, wearing sleek dark armor, his presence commanding absolute terror and respect across every star system. Below them, billions of citizens cheered for the family that brought an end to the Clone Wars. The Senate cheered for order. The worlds cheered for security. But the freedom they once held was gone, traded willingly for the promise of eternal peace under an iron fist. Luke and Leia would not be raised as farm boys or hidden princesses. They would be trained from birth in the ways of the dark side, molded into unstoppable commanders and ruthless politicians. Padmé looked down at her newborn son, her dark eyes glowing with total triumph. The Republic was dead. The Jedi were forgotten history, and the dark dynasty of House Amidala had only just begun.